Hello, everyone. My name is Kat Singer, and I'm the guest curator for this year's Being Seen small group show. And that I'm titled Uncommon Threads. In this virtual space with me, I have one of the artists that I've invited to work with me, and her name is Khadija Aziz. Hi, Khadija. Could you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Khadija Aziz. I'm a multidisciplinary artist based in Toronto and Montreal. Yeah, and I'm finalizing my MFA at the time of this recording. So I'm like in my last couple of weeks.
Awesome. Must be a bit of a crunch.
Yeah,
So
that's exciting.
what kind of media do you work in?
My training is in textiles. I did my undergrad and my MFA in textiles, but I am also self-taught in digital arts. So I work with textiles, digital art, and also like my MFA exhibition is all on drawing, with like a little bit of textile element that is also going to be featured in Uncommon Threads.
Amazing. So the next question on my list is around showing us your studio or describing where you work.
Yeah. Well, my studio is kind of like all over the place, like literally because it travels with me. I live between the cities of Montreal and Toronto. So my studio at the moment is mostly primarily in Montreal because my school is there. But I work from like a home studio. So in my or kind of like I make art on the go, kind of like with me on the train or on the couch when I'm watching Netflix with my brother. And my studio, it mostly consists of like a comfortable seat, a comfortable like couch or chair, and a desk. Or if I'm doing embroidery, I don't even need a desk. Yeah, and also I have like a lovely mug warmer so I can drink a lot of tea while I'm making my work.
That sounds really cozy and lovely. I also work a lot on the go with my textile projects, including, yeah, like on the subway, like cutting pieces, sewing
Yeah.
them together. So I can relate, and it's nice to have a portable studio.
Mhm.
So your piece in the show, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what does it look like? Could you give a brief visual description?
Yeah, the piece in the show is called "We Felt Together at Workman Arts," and it is it is going to be, or it is a an interactive installation of a large. It's a felt canvas, as you can think of it as a felt canvas on a wall, and there's an interactive element where I as the artist will install like a tile inspired patterns, so like repeat patterns that reflect the pattern elements of like reflection, transformation, um, and rotation. And the idea is that I'm using felt on felt and felt, like the fiber structures of felt are kind of like they allow them to stick to each other like a velcro kind of thing. So over time, like with the passage of time or with like just a movement or air, some of the felt piece, like some of the tile patterns will fall on the floor. And the idea is that to let it happen and to invite the audience to maybe pick it up and reinstall it on the felt wall. And in that sense, everybody's kind of creating this pattern together. And I really am inspired by the idea of like touch and play and kind of being together to create something together, especially after the like years of pandemic lockdowns. So this is going to be one of my like one of my newest in-person installation. So I really
Mhm.
want to take advantage of like the touch element, especially like after, staying especially after like being really cautious of like what we touch. So I'm hoping that we can all kind of create an artwork together and feel together.
I mean, that sounds amazing. I look forward to adhering some pieces of felt. temporarily to the felt canvas and seeing what happens. Uh, and at some point in a different conversation, you've mentioned that there might be some other elements to like to the felts.
The yarn elements on the piece are to add like detail work if people want to get really creative, or if the audience wants to get really creative. It will allow folks to kind of maybe create more intricate like storytelling that could happen as well. Or maybe I'm imagining if like with the linearity of the yarn, people could write, leave messages, or a kind of like um draw more narratives like.
Awesome, exciting. Well, whether it happens or not, I'm, really looking forward to how this develops. And we have a couple of other community connected pieces in the show, and I'm looking forward to how like all the pieces will interplay. So, what inspired your piece, or like what inspired your piece?
My We felt a pattern is inspired by patterns and repetition and the imperfections of pattern and the interruption of pattern. I'm I think a lot about like kind of imperfectionism in art. Like kind of I've been exploring a lot about like I've been in my MFA, I've been researching play and failure. So kind of like how play teaches us to fail and because I'm using just felt and felt sticks to itself because of the characteristics. There is the opportunity for the installation to like fail where all the pieces fall down. And then I'm also interested a lot in interactivity because I'm also an educator.
Mhm.
So just like naturally, I think, and also my art practice began as a community-based artist. I began making community-based art first. So naturally, kind of I always think about like how to engage my audience in my work, um, so that, I don't know, it's like a deeper learning experience and deeper engaging experience. So I was thinking about the interactivity element as well, so that when felt falls that kind of defy this own logic of existing together, people can come and re-adhere the felt and kind of collectively recreate a pattern that was interrupted by its own self.
Mhm. I love how all of the threads from your career are kind of like becoming interwoven together, like your
Mhm.
community arts and education practice, and your like another thing that I remember you're kind of like into is like spontaneity and play, and kind of like responding to your internal like feelings with like through embroidery. I don't like because I know you from embroidery. So, what would you say the message behind your piece is, like the main underlying message?
Um, I think my underlying message behind the piece is to invite folks to play mostly, play with not just like, you know, okay, I think like as like after, I don't know, somehow we forget to learn to play, and so that's what I really want to kind of like get out. The message that I want to get out is like kind of play and allow failure to happen and kind of like make room for failure because and also like you said, Kat, the felt will stick together to itself. Like they are meant to stick together. That's the nature of the material, but it will also, with the passage of time, fall apart. So kind of like to let it happen, to let your plans fall apart a little bit, but then in like allow yourself to piece things back together, maybe in a different composition or maybe in a different way. Just kind of like be open to failure and make room for failure so that there's more opportunity to learn and see things in a different way, because when installation that I'm creating falls apart, people will reinstall, and then we all will see the installation in a new arranged way that nobody else has imagined, and
Hmm.
that wouldn't have been possible without the collectivity of it.
Yeah. I also see your like the image itself as like a collaboration of like humans and time. Because like let's say we put things in place, right? And then like time makes like, you know, time and gravity, like some inevitable forces make the things fall down. But as you've told me before, the floor is also the area, right? Where like things happen. So
Mhm.
who can say that the image on the floor is less important than the image that's deliberately put up on the wall?
Yeah, the floor is equally important because I'm like deliberately creating space to allow the things to fall. So that's why, I'm like planning for my work to fail, and I'm like relying on it to fail. In fact, it has to
Hmm.
fail so that people so that it can work.
Hmm. But perhaps, you know, the way that I'm seeing it is like maybe it's not failure, maybe it's flexibility, maybe it's like the way that we see failure, sometimes it feels like final. It's like
Mhm.
a conclusion that's made. But to me, like this is kind of like a process. And who's to say that, like, you know, if paradoxically your work would fail if you adhered things with glue because they then wouldn't fall, so they wouldn't have to be put back together,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there's many different definitions of that. So it's kind of cool. I love what's opening up in this discussion right now, too.
Yeah, and you said something about, oh yeah, so flexibility. And I think we can learn to be flexible through playing, and because when we're playing with materials or experimenting in art, um, we're more likely, or when we're allowing ourselves to be spontaneous, we're more likely to experience um, unexpected outcomes or like failures. And that's why I love like spontaneous drawing or spontaneous embroidery, because I'm not expecting an outcome. So when my art decides for me, or when like nature decides for me, like how it wants to engage with my work, so I'm able to be more flexible and I guess resilient to failure, and then kind of reinvent the wheel as it happens. And I think like I can also say that there's also this a reference to the history of making together, like crafting together, especially in textiles, because textiles has such a rich history of like communal making, um, whether for like themselves, like making for families or for the communities, or make like a workshop making, weaving different parts of a shawl together. There's
Mhm.
a lot of collective um, there's a lot of communal and collective making of textile objects, historically and even now.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, community element is big in textiles, and I can't wait to like show you all of the other artist works as well. Another question that I have is how did you come to work with textiles?
Hmm. So I um, was a painter before, like in my undergrad. I was not in the drawing and painting program, but I was like mostly painting. And then I just felt like I I wasn't feeling challenged, so I wanted to switch my major, and I chose to major like in I chose to switch my program to textiles literally so I can touch things. um and I appreciate that you asked me this question, because we felt a pattern is so based on touch, but I came to like learn textiles so I can like touch soft things and make things with my hands. Not that painting is not made with hands, but I can like really be one with the materials. So I can, experiment and explore with the materiality of different mediums and processes, and really kind of like use my whole body to make art. Not that you can't do that with painting, but textiles just has a rich materiality that I really wanted to be part of. And I love
Mhm.
that I switched to textiles.
Yeah, I can relate. So, yeah, it sounds like you really like that, like rich materiality and tactility.
Hmm.
Uh, in some ways, I know that. like when I started conceiving of this show, I was thinking about how textiles are amazing around like storytelling. So, Khadija, is there anything that's going on in your life right now that's impacting the making of your piece?
Um, yeah. Well, there is a lot going on in life, and also like the transition of like kind of because I'll be moving out of Montreal, coming back to Toronto soon. So there's a lot going on there on a personal and like career-based level. But I think I'm focusing on like the creation of my work of my textile and digital practice, and this is one of them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, sounds like, you're doing what many of us do, focusing on the things you can control and trying to let go of the things that you can't. So, yeah, that's amazing. It was lovely to have you in the studio visit, share space, learn more about your ideas. I really look forward to seeing your piece in the show.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me.